afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, the president, founder, and chief listening officer here at our network, where we celebrate you, our loyal followers. We celebrate our team, we celebrate our guests and our sponsors. Thank you for being here. Our show today is The Corner Bookstore. My co-host and friend, DIANN BOEHM, has the day off, so I will be doing the program myself, along with our wonderful guests. Our topic today is This Cold Night with horror author Erica Schaef. Let's welcome her to the program and find out about her new book. Hello there. How are you?
Hi, fine. How are you?
Well, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Tell our audience where you're joining from, please.
I am from rural Tennessee near Chattanooga, a little town called Cleveland, Tennessee.
Cleveland, Tennessee. Well, thank you again for being here. I'm looking forward to getting to know about you and your work. We were talking a little bit backstage. Obviously, this is the Corner Bookstore. We're going to be talking about This Cold Night. But I'd love for people to be able to connect on a personal level. You shared with me that you had some experience as a nurse. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, yeah. So I worked as a surgical technologist for a while in an operating room. And then I went to nursing school and I spent about 2 years working as a psychiatric nurse in an inpatient psychiatric hospital. And I also did some work as an operating room nurse and an inpatient rehab nurse. Now I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 crazy children and I homeschool them. So that's been my newest challenge. But yeah, other than that, I like to write, I like to garden. Sometimes I like to bake, though I'm not that good of a baker. I am trying to get better. So it's a little bit about my background. I started writing short stories before I got into longer works like novels and novellas. And This Cold Night is my latest story to come out from Bridget's Gate Press.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Very interesting background. I don't think I've interviewed anyone with a background like that. Let's dig into it because I always feel like everything builds on everything to get you to where you are today. So what was that experience like as a nurse, especially with people who had some mental health challenges? Was that really stressful?
It is stressful and it's very eye-opening. I feel like it really forces you to view the world in a different way. And working with people who have disadvantages that you haven't experienced or that have underlying problems that were not choices, but something that they've been dealt, it really opens your eyes to how lucky and privileged you are to have, for me, to have the life that I had. And I think one of the things that it really, like I said, one of the things that it really helped me with was empathy, because it's just to see the way that some people have to live or to see the things that some people have to live with is just really, it really changes the way you see the world.
Thanks for sharing that. I really can appreciate that. And I hope that opens people's eyes as well, because sometimes we're so quick to judge. We're quick to label. We're quick to say, oh, she has that problem. He has that problem. We're all struggling with something. Just in some cases, it's more apparent than others. What were some of the takeaways in addition to what you shared? Did you learn more patience? You talked about homeschooling. I imagine that's something you have to be really patient to do. Was that as a result of your work as a nurse?
Well, I think that's one thing that I really, you have to learn as a nurse. You have to have patience. You have to have, like I said, you have to have empathy. You learn that also, because a part of your job as a nurse is to try to educate people, whether it's about their diagnosis or their medication or what they can do treatment wise once they get back home, hopefully. So I think another big takeaway is that individuals learn in so many different ways. Like some people might, and you learn this with reading too, or writing. Some people really prefer to have an audiobook because they process information more easily that way. And some people would rather have something they can look at and hold. And some people, so I guess the different ways that people can learn better is something that I learned as a nurse that is applicable in homeschooling and writing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And yet your genre for this book, This Cold Night, is horror. That's what your genre is, horror. So when I think about horror, I think of your heart racing, you're looking around, and is anybody behind? So that seems to be on the other side of calm, soothing. Tell us a little bit about that dichotomy, if you would.
Yeah, so I think knowing a lot about what you find terrifying or what you think would as fear, sometimes you can play a little bit with that as far as sometimes it is the jump scare, sometimes it is the scary thing that's following you, or is something following you. And sometimes for me, it can be more of a calm, quiet, psychological build. And sometimes I think that can be more frightening even than the jump scares or the gore. And this book actually has a little bit of both. It has some jump scares, it has some body horror, but it has a psychological element to it as well that I think uh, sometimes you can play on the calm, like a false feeling of calm, or characters wanting to rationalize the first few things that happen that, okay, well, this is actually normal and nothing bad's happening because you want to have that status quo, and then them kind of losing that uh, grip on their calmness, that grip on what reality really is.
I really like what you talked about the buildup. I know sometimes when you're watching a movie or reading a book, it's like you're drawn in, you're drawn, you can't wait. And then it's like, oh, wow, I didn't see that coming. And where do you get your inspiration for your characters?
I think a lot, like with that, a lot of like Hitchcockian stories where you're not seeing the thing you're afraid of, and then you can kind of go into the mind of the character to try to relate to what they must be feeling or how they're going back and forth between being afraid and trying to rationalize what's happening and disbelieving what's happening. And there's a balance between that and also trying to keep everything realistic. Like for this book, I wasn't going for like a campy, funny horror. I was going for real, uh, frightening, real horror. So it's hard sometimes with that suspension of disbelief to not fall into, oh, this is so unbelievable that this is almost funny, not this isn't scary. So I think going into the characters and having their perspective through the book to see how they're thinking about these things or how they're dealing with these things can make it more relatable, and it feels more like, hopefully if you can connect to the character, it feels more like you're going through whatever it is they're going through.
Yeah, so you can relate to it. And who, if anyone, are these characters based on?
I don't really intentionally base any of the characters on anyone. I think with the main character, looking back at it, I think there are some similarities between myself and the main character, and it's from her perspective. So I think inevitably how I would react to a situation or how I might think about something gets into her reactions because I'm trying to make her as relatable as possible. And I think inevitably parts of yourself go into all your characters, especially the ones that are it's from their perspective. But no, there wasn't. None of them were intentionally based on anyone, but I think a few of them in this story have some characteristics of real people in my life.
And when you think about your audience, the reader, the people who follow you, how would you describe them?
Um, I have so many amazing people that follow me, people that write reviews for me, and that's really helpful as an author. It really helps boost your audience if people will write reviews or engage with whatever content's out there. Um, and even if it's not a 5-star review, even if it is, like I like this, I didn't like this, whatever, that's really helpful because even though I have beta readers and I have people that edit and you know many eyes are on the book before it comes out, I really do like hearing honest reactions from people because writing something I want to continue to do. And if I know like, hey, this worked or this wasn't very well received, then I can use that for whatever I'm doing next. Because ultimately, I want the readers to be entertained. I want them to be frightened, and I want them to have a good experience from the book.
Excellent. We do have a comment from someone over on YouTube that goes by, I guess it's GBXX. Love your work, Erica. I can't wait for more.
you.
How nice. Do you know this person?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the name.
Okay. Well,
I
we'll
know.
see if they want to
Yeah,
disclose
the
who
real
they
name.
are. So, Erica, tell us a little bit about your journey as an author, because we always have people watching who have started to write something, or they did write it and it's under the bed, it's on the shelf, they never did anything with it. So, tell us about when you started writing to where you are today. What does that journey look like?
So when I started writing, I was a teenager. Well, no, I was a kid when I really started writing. But when I started writing more cohesive stories or novels, I was a teenager and I did not want anybody to read my work or anything like that. It was just for my own. And I was mostly just afraid of people like would think it was stupid or would laugh or whatever people's reactions would be. They think like, why are you doing this? It's a waste of time. You're not any good at this. But I think as I grew older, I was like, well, you know what? If I enjoy writing it, maybe somebody will enjoy reading it. If I enjoy this genre or I enjoy this idea, somebody else out there might like it. So I'll try and just put it out there. And I think that if you are working on something and you like it, don't worry about how it will be received, because chances are if you're entertained by it, if you think it was a good idea and you think, oh, this is really entertaining, this is really cool, I've never seen anything like this before, other people will think that too. And some people inevitably won't like it, but I don't know. I think you have to focus on if it's meaningful for you and it's something that you want to share with people, then do it. I think you shouldn't hold yourself back.
I think that's good direction. So many times we get all bogged down about what we think people are going to think, and therefore we take no action. We stand still and go, I can't do this because nobody's going to like it. But if you like it, believe in yourself and just go with your intuition and put it out there. I know for me, I started writing about 18 months ago, and I see an evolution. I have a long way to go, and it's okay. I don't have a lot of reviews, and I think to myself, oh, people say that they read it, but they never wrote a review. So tell us.
I think partially people don't realize how much that matters in an algorithm, or how much you just liking something or sharing one thing, or especially with if you're going through Amazon or places like that, reviews matter a lot to the visibility of whatever it is. So I think um, it's, obviously you don't want to be like, hey, review my book. Did you read it? Review it. Make sure you review it. But also, I think sharing, I think a lot of people aren't aware of how helpful it is, of how helpful reviews are. So I think it's okay to, and I have on my like Facebook pages and stuff, I'll share things that kind of inform people of how important reviews are to authors and books. Like I said, even if it doesn't have to be a 5-star review, give an honest review. It's still very helpful.
It really is. And I want to really get into your latest book. Before we do, I just want to have you talk a little bit about a place where a lot of authors really get bogged down. They don't understand exactly what they have to do. I know for me, it's been a major learning journey, but it's cutting through all the noise with marketing and giving people the awareness that you have a new book, what it's about, and how they can find it. So, what is it that you do? You mentioned beta readers. And by the way, I had not heard of that term before. I'm like, oh, I need some beta readers. So, what is it that you do in terms of marketing to get the word out there?
Well, I think social media is a huge thing, and you can, like Facebook groups, you can find people who are interested in the thing that you're doing. Like find horror fans, find people who like to read haunted house novels or whatever you're writing about. There's groups and everything for everything. So there's no point in marketing horror to somebody who's like, oh, I'm never going to read horror. Like, I don't like to be scared. I don't like this genre. There's no point in telling you that I have a book out because you don't care. So I think the important thing is, with me, what I try to do is find groups or certain people that you can see, oh, they seem like they're interested in this, and then reach out to people. People who have podcasts, people who do reviews. So many people are happy to, like, hey, here's a copy of my book. Can you write a review on it for Amazon? Yeah, sure. Like, and they put it on their blogs and it drives traffic to their website. So a lot of times just reaching out to people, in my experience, everybody's been really friendly, even if they can't do it or they don't, it's not good for their schedule. Everybody has been very kind, and I haven't had a bad experience ever.
So we're encouraging people, reach out. Don't just stay to yourself. Ask people to help. Most people will help. Most people are very kind. And I've talked about this before on other shows, but the author community itself is like none other that I've ever seen, about how it's not competition. It's, no, I'm lifting you up, you lift me up. Let's be there for each other.
And I've noticed for that community, I just got Twitter like last year or the year before. And I've noticed that the author community on Twitter is great. They're so supportive of each other, like you said. It never feels like a competition or that anybody's resentful that somebody got something they didn't. Everybody's so supportive, like, hey, have you tried this? Or, sharing tips or whatever has helped them with their success. So I think, yeah, it's a great community.
And do you set aside a certain amount of time each day, or how do you plan your writing? Is it incorporated into your daily routine?
So if I'm actively working on a novel or a novella, yes, I will set aside usually a couple to a few hours, whatever I think I can get in, 4 or 5 days a week. Usually on a project, if I don't have a deadline that I have to do more, I can write 2,000 words a day is usually what I try to do. But like right now, I'm not really working on anything. I'm kind of just promoting this book, and I have a few ideas, but I don't have a set timeline. So if I don't have a set timeline and I get an idea, I'll just write like, hey, I don't want to forget this. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you come up with an idea and be like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna write this down for the morning. And then sometimes you look at it in the morning, and you're like, yeah, great idea. And sometimes you're like, no, that was a bad midnight thought.
And for how many books have you written so far and published?
Four novel lengths, and then probably 20 short stories.
It's a lot.
How long? Short stories, yeah.
How long do you, if you are emotionally connected with it, how long do you stay emotionally connected before you're like, okay, I'm done with that, I'm moving on to the next project? Or are they always a part of you?
I feel like there's a lot of projects that I've started where that's happened, where I've been like, oh, this is really great. And I really like this character. I really like this idea. And then they get to a point where you're trying to transition to the next thing that happens, and you either feel bored or disconnected. And if you're feeling that way, you know that, okay, hey, the reader's probably going to feel that way here. If you feel bored, they're going to feel bored. So sometimes I'll leave that and then come back to it when I feel excited about it again. And then sometimes that's just the end of that project. Sometimes they just don't come to a good conclusion. But usually I feel like if I can give it some time, or if I'm getting discouraged, sometimes I'll think I'm doing really great, and then I'll come to a page and I'll look back at what I wrote and I'm like, this is terrible. And so I know I just need to take a break and then come back and look at it later, because I'm probably being too pessimistic.
Yeah, we do that. We beat ourselves up, don't we?
Yeah, it's really hard not to, because it's so personal. It's so personal to you.
Definitely. And we're going to talk specifically now about This Cold Night. And then if you have your book handy, I'd love for you to read for us. And if you don't, we'll go to commercial and then you can get it while we're.
Yeah, I'll get it. I do have it, but not in this room.
Okay, perfect. So tell our audience, what, at a high level, what do you want readers to take away from This Cold Night?
I think what I want mostly to be taken away from this book is I want you to be glad that you read it. I want you to have felt entertained. I want you to have felt frightened. And I want, maybe you there are, like you mentioned, some psychiatric diagnoses and things in this book that maybe some people haven't heard of. So maybe that you'll learn something you didn't know, and you could maybe some words you didn't know, or some, like I said, some personality traits you didn't know, or some diagnosis that you weren't aware of, and maybe that's some new knowledge for you.
I think that's great. So you've got an educational aspect in there as well.
A little bit.
Well, why don't we go to commercial break? I'll let you get the book, and then you can read for us and we'll have a chat about it. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to take a break. Please stay with us. We're going to actually watch a couple of clips from our lovely DIANN FLOYD, who's not with us right now, but she is here with us on the commercial breaks. Stay with us.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan.
Diann Floyd BOEHM's A Song of Peace tells the story of a young lad named Tommy whose fervent wish for peace on earth touches the hearts of his friends and family, spreads to his community, and eventually unites the whole world around making his dream of peace a reality for everyone. Sit down with the children in your life and share Tommy's amazing story of love and hope. Sing your own song of peace and invite the children to join you. Tommy's tale is more than just a story. It's a movement, and everyone's warmly welcome to take part.
Kapayapaan, 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 kapayapaan.
You'll find A Song of Peace, along with many other wonderful learning and enriching opportunities for children of all ages, at DIANNFLOYDBOEHM.com.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diann BOEHM. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diann Floyd BOEHM tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diann's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diann's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diann's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diann's delightful books and much more at DIANNFLOYDBOEHM.com. Visit DIANNFLOYDBOEHM.com. That's DIANNFLOYDBOEHM.com.
Thank you for staying with us through the break. This is still USA Global TV and Radio, and I'm still Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Our show is The Corner Bookstore. Thank you to Diann Floyd BOEHM for her sponsorship and for her friendship and for just being a wonderful human being all around. Our guest is Erica Schaef, and she is the author of This Cold Night. She joins us for a special reading. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited for this. I'm going to spotlight you and go ahead and take it away. Read us whatever you'd like to.
Okay, I'm just going to read the prologue here. Okay. This cold night will turn us all to fools and madmen. William Shakespeare, King Lear. Her skin was like wax, cracked and so pale it was almost translucent. Tiny purple and pink capillaries spread out underneath in a mingled web. The blood within them coagulated and still. There was no color in her sunken cheeks, no hair to cover her smooth scalp. The chemotherapy treatments had taken so much from her that she wasn't even recognizable by the time death had finally come. This wasn't her. The thing before me was just a shell. I had to turn away. The funeral parlor smelled like formaldehyde vaguely disguised with floral perfume. She doesn't belong here. So that's the prologue.
Wow, I got chills on that. Whew. Now, is that based on an actual experience that you had with someone?
Well, unfortunately, being a nurse, and in my personal life, yes, I have had experiences knowing people that have had cancer and have, thankfully, a lot of people, have gone into remission and are fine. But yes, I have had in both experiences people that passed away. So I tried to put a little bit of that grief into the prologue.
And with the writing that you do, is there a lot of research that's required?
So for the medical parts, I don't have to do that much, just having worked as a nurse. But depending on what I'm writing about, yes, sometimes, because I've written stories that take place in the 1800s and stories where people, I wrote one about a marine biologist, which I had no idea about. So I had to do a lot of research for that one. For this one in particular, this was modern times, and there was some medical involved research that I did, but for this one I didn't have to do very much. But for some of my stories, especially, it seems like I do more research than I do actual writing, because with the marine biologist, because I don't want to just I want it to be believable, and I don't want somebody who works in that field to look at it and be like, what is she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've actually interviewed other people who have also done research and been called out by reviewers that, hey, that's not accurate, or you missed it on this one. And I would think it's difficult to have every single aspect to be on point, because you're basing it off of what you're reading. And,
Right. What if you're misinterpreting it, or that wasn't exactly right what you read? And sometimes you can write from a character's perspective, so that maybe the character got it wrong,
yeah.
Maybe she thought that, but that wasn't right. But like I was talking about the marine biologist story, there was a lot of the deep submersion vehicle that she was in. Like there were things about that you really can't get wrong, So you have to be really careful about what you put in, and then trying to make sure, you don't have to over explain things, but try to make sure that what you do put in is at least mostly accurate, so that it doesn't take people out of the story.
And would you say that your writing fills you up or depletes you? And I'll give you an example. One of the books I wrote, I shared something that happened to me many years ago that was really traumatic. And I felt kind of like liberated putting it out there, but then exhausted. And then writing children's books, I feel really lifted and positive. So how do you feel with your writing while you're doing it and when you're finished it?
I think, like you said, it really depends on what content you're writing. If you're writing something, like you said, like a traumatic event that happened to you, or you're drawing from something that was very personal to you, and that can be very draining, like cathartic at the same time, but draining, almost like you're at a therapy session, I feel like. So when I'm writing, a lot of times I'm really excited about it, and I'm writing I can't get it out fast enough. I want to tell the story. I want to tell it quickly, and I want to get it out, and I'm really excited about it. But then after that, I feel really tired and really drained, and I can't do anything creative for a while.
Yeah, I can relate to that. While you have the book there, can I spotlight you and just have you show it to our audience? Okay. There it is. Wow, look at that cover. Tell us.
The cover's by, I don't want to say her name wrong, so let me. Elizabeth Leggett. The last name is Leggett, and she did amazing. She does amazing art. If you want to check out her webpage.
Yeah, that really draws you in. Now, was that the first version of the cover, or did you have several iterations of it?
It was always pretty much like this. The publisher sent me the basic idea of it, which looked, it wasn't fully formed like this at the beginning. And I was like, oh yeah, I really like that idea. And then they went forward with it, and they showed me a couple versions of it. Not really versions, just what they were working toward it. And then when they showed me this, I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I really like that.
And you mentioned publicists, and of course, Mickey's your publicist, right, Mickey?
Yes, I'm at the publisher. I'm sorry. So British Press was the one that showed me the cover first, and then they got him. They weren't working with him yet at that point, but then as this book was coming out, then they started working with him. So yeah, then he got me as one of his authors.
Yeah, Mickey Mickelson has been really quite generous with our platform here, sending people. So for people who haven't worked with a publicist, or they think only the rich and famous work with a publicist, what is the value that a publicist can bring and does bring?
Well, they get you, like how we were talking about exposure before. They do so much work, and they know people that you don't know. They already have contacts. So since I've been, like I said, my publisher assigned him to me. And since I've been working with him, or he's been working with me, I've had nonstop either interviews or like, hey, they want to feature you on this blog. So many more reviews. It really gets your work out there. And like, I got a alert or a notification yesterday on Facebook that I was in the top 3 rising creators on Facebook, which I know wouldn't have happened if I didn't have a publicist putting out my information like that. So it really does help.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. And, everybody writes for a different reason. And it's interesting because I've had people say to me, oh, how many books did you sell? How much money are you making from it? And for me, that's not the reason that I'm doing it. But for some people, they really believe that you can get rich and famous. And I guess some people do, in the New York Times bestsellers. But for most people, it's not about the money. How would you describe what it is that drives you to continue writing?
Well, I think it's always been a hobby. So whether or not I ever made any money on writing or not, it's something that I would do. Like you said, there are people who are dependent on writing, and that's how they make their living, or how they want to be able to make their living. And I think that would be, like you said, unless you're going to be on a New York Times bestseller list, or you're going to get really, really big, really fast, I imagine you're going to have to do some freelance work. You're going to have to do some work that's maybe not creatively what you want to do. But to me, it's like, I almost think of it as a hobby that I really like doing, that I can make some extra money for, like for Christmas or whatever. It's cool that I can make money doing it, but I would do it anyway.
Because you're passionate about it. And I think it's interesting for the books I published, specifically through Amazon. I love to go on KDP and go, oh, someone bought a book today, or sold 2 books today. Yay, it's so exciting. I don't know. It's just knowing that somebody's out there supporting what it is that you're doing. And at least in my experience, I've never gone on and 100 people bought a book that day. But just to know, 1 person, 2 people, 5 people, it's just that your work is out there and someone is enjoying it, or I think it's just special.
I saw on YouTube somebody had a list, somebody who I didn't know had a list of like audio books that they had listened to in the last year that were their top 10 favorites, and one of mine was on there. And it was like, oh, that's so cool. Like somebody I don't even know, right? Like even like you said, just 1 person. It's like, oh, that's really cool.
They
really
cool.
enjoyed it.
And so you mentioned audio. There's obviously different formats for books. So there's the ebook, the paperback, the hardback, the audio. Do you create content for all of these?
I have things out for, so one of my short stories was made into like a full cast audio production. It's called Eska, so it's on Audible. And then some of my short stories have been part of audiobooks, like an anthology. Yes, and then everything else has been, I think, both ebook and paperback, and some things in hardcover. But yeah, I think, but usually when I write the story or the book, I don't know how it's going to come out, because I myself have never self-published anything, so I don't really choose how, like I sign the contract, I agree to how it comes out, but I don't make the decision of like, is this going to be just an ebook? Is this going to be a paperback? Is this going to be audio? Like I agree to those things, but I don't myself make those decisions.
It's probably for the best, because it's a lot of tedious work.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's one thing that I just don't think I would have the ability to do, even if I really wanted to do it successfully. I don't know if I could.
Well, I'm sure you could, but with the homeschooling, I'm sure that takes a lot of time. I want to
Right.
ask a question about that. You're so creative. How do you bring that creativity, if you do, into the homeschooling?
Well, I try to encourage, and my grandparents and my parents, when I was a kid, they all very much encouraged whatever creative outlet I wanted or my sister wanted. So like with writing, I was always very encouraged to do that. And so I try to see what my kids creatively like, and then try to encourage them to do that. Like my daughter really likes drawing and painting, and she's 5. So I really try to encourage her, like, hey, that's great, and try to display her work so she feels proud of it and she feels encouraged to keep doing it. And my son actually really has been liking to tell stories, and he told me a scary story the other day about a werewolf in a portal, and I was like, oh my gosh, but yeah, so I'm like, oh, that's really great, buddy. You should keep thinking about what are these characters going to do next, or how is this going to end? And I try to encourage creativity and however they find it. I think that's the important thing, because it should be an expression of yourself, of your feelings, your emotions, and how you let that out creatively is however you choose to do that. So I think that's just an important thing to keep in mind, the individuality of creativity.
I love that, because Diann, my co-host here, we've talked about the fact that how important it is at a young age to be encouraged to express yourself creatively. And I know when I was growing up, it seems like eons ago, that people didn't always laud or applaud your creativity. It's like, you're no good at that, you can't do this, you should focus on that. And that really does set the stage for your confidence level, how you feel about yourself in certain ways, instead of encouraging people to be creative.
It really does. I'm very naturally introverted, and I don't want to make a splash. I don't want, like, status quo. Like, I want everybody else to be happy. And I think if I wouldn't have had the support of grandparents and a grandma that read to me, and a mom and dad that really encouraged my writing and told me how great it was and that it was really cool that I did this, I probably would have never, as an adult, put it out there, or if I would have, it would have been even later than I did. Because I think people who, and I don't know, sometimes creative people, I feel like, also have the self-doubt and anxiety. I've noticed with a lot of, like you said, how you have a community of authors and creative people. I've noticed that anxiety and self-doubt seems to be something that a lot of authors and creative people have. And so I feel like the natural inclination with that sometimes is to not put yourself out there, and to not have the confidence to express yourself the way that you want to. And I feel that having supportive people in your life who know exactly who you are and support you in your weirdness or whatever it is really important.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that. We've heard of comedians, for example, who have taken their own lives. We've heard of documentaries. I think somebody told me Lady Gaga did a documentary, I hope I'm getting this right, about suffering from anxiety. Every time before she went on stage, she was literally panicked. I know I've read Barbara Streisand has shared something like that. And we have to get out of our own way. And at the same time, it's not about other people approving of what we're doing. But yet I imagine if you're standing on a stage, for example, in front of thousands of people, that you want them cheering as opposed to booing.
Human, like right, it shouldn't carry so much weight. But like I said, you're human, and when you already have underlying anxiety, if that it's something you can't help, it's going to make a big difference whether you have people in your life that support you or people in your life that tell you, you know, "Oh, that's not good," or "You're wasting your time," or "That's not something that's going to be productive for you." I think
Yes,
it makes a huge difference.
so true. And have you been a teacher before?
No, my mom's a teacher. So, well, she's retired now, but my mom was a teacher for 20 some years. She was an elementary school teacher. So I get a lot of help from her with my homeschooling ideas and curriculums and everything like that.
And I'm just curious. So with the homeschooling, how do you get the curriculum? Is it something that you go online and get? Is something you're putting together yourself?
Yeah, you can. There's so many options available. So you can do. There's online curriculums that you can do. There's like different companies put out different curriculums for grades. So you can get this first grade curriculum from a back essay, or you can do time for learning online. There's so many options with curriculums, but I think again, it's kind of like my son likes to be on the computer. He likes to be, I feel like he focuses more that way. Whereas my daughter, like, she likes to have a book. She likes to physically do the writing. And so you can kind of look around the different options to see what works best for your individual kid. That's what I try to do.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. We haven't had anybody on before who's done homeschooling, so I think that's fascinating, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit and hearing about your backstory as well. We have up all of your banners, but for people who are listening on a radio station or on a podcast platform, what's the best way to contact you? What's the best way to purchase your books?
So on social media, so Twitter, Facebook, it's at Erica Schaef, and Schaef is SCHAEF. So all my links and everything are there. I also have my own website on WordPress, so it's just ericaschaef.wordpress.com. And then my email is ericaschaef@gmail.com if somebody would want to get in touch with me for some reason. That's also on my pages.
Okay, and thank you for sharing that. What would you like to say to our audience as we close out the show today?
Oh, thanks for taking the time to listen to me talk about my book and myself, and I appreciate your interest in the video.
Thank you so much. Erica, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. Please do come back on one of our other shows. We have about 25 shows a week, and we'd like to continue to support your work, maybe even talking about homeschooling. I think that would be great too.
Sure.
All right. Thank you again. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye. And thank you to each and every one of you who's watching or listening, whether it's on the live or the replay. Most of our audience watches at their own convenience on the replay, which we love. We love live viewers as well. And I just want to mention to you, if you are an author and you would like us to support your work, please go over to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and book your session. Our next show is coming up. It's the film and music show, followed by The Wise Ones, followed by Talking Heads. So I hope you'll stay with us wherever you're watching, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Just stay where you are. We'll be coming right back in about 15 minutes. Thank you. Bye.